First of all, let's see if anyone is actually disappointed with Starfield.
Fucking pronouns!
I see. But why? Why does everyone expect to get anything good from a company the last few games of which were this? Bethesda was so-called savior of single-player games, but why? How does it get this title, and what happened? Let's take a look.
There has been a nuclear accident in the Soviet Union, and the Soviets have admitted that it happened.
This year, Christopher Weaver decides to create a game development company to see if PC gaming is alive and can actually be squeezable for some money. And the first game they released was Gridiron, which was the most realistic football simulator to date. I mean, it was 86. The game was awarded a few Sports Game of the Year awards, so it wasn't all that bad. Basically, this game started the Bethesda software. After Greedy, they released a few more sports games and even some movie license game, but most important one happened on March of '94, when Bethesda released their first Elder Scrolls game, Arena. And unlike its name and box art suggests, this has nothing to do with arenas and, to some degree, melee fights, or even hot babes. It was a true old-style RPG video game. You see, internally, Bethesda staff were huge D&D and fantasy fans. So, at some point they just decided to go and make their own game with all the nerdy stuff. In the first game, you would be greeted with a billion options right from the start. Choose your stats, races, class, which province you would call home, which ugly face is your ugly face, you know the stuff. The main quest revolves around Emperor Auriel Septim IV, who is tricked by Jaguar Thorn and ends up to... somewhere. And now, Jaguar can take over the world. Obviously, you are very important and only you can save the world. But, I mean, it's a true Elder Scrolls game, so nobody cares about the main quests. Side quests are much more interesting. Finally, after all the choosing and exposition, you'll start the game, and since it's an Elder Scrolls game, you would obviously start in prison. Most important is that this game was a success for Bethesda. Yeah, only 3,000 were sold. But later, sales increased, and most importantly, critical reception was great, so they decided to proceed. After just 2 years of wait, try to imagine it nowadays, Bethesda released Daggerfall, and despite its being released on a CD, unlike the last game, which were delivered in a pack of 100 floppy disks, it does look suspiciously identical to the first game. But don't get me wrong, there were differences, like you could actually create your own class now, even further increasing your nerd status. Long story short, this time, Emperor Auriel VIP sends you to Daggerfall to check on the local prince's health, since, you know, he's dead. But even in death, this noisy bastard keeps yapping something about revenge, and you need to find out what's going on exactly. Also, Emperor sent some dick pics. Also, Emperor sent some business letters to Queen of Daggerfall, and since she never replied back, it would probably be good if you would find and destroy them. Daggerfall was a huge hit. It surpassed the internal estimates of Bethesda and sold over 100,000 copies. So, obviously they printed more, and then more, and more, bumping up the sales up to 700,000 copies sold. Daggerfall also won several Game of the Year awards and was highly praised by critics and players. Bethesda spent few years releasing games like Nerevar Drag Racing or PBA Bowling, but everyone knew it was coming. Something big, something dark was looming on the horizon, and finally, it was here. The Elder Scrolls Adventures Redguard. Oh, okay. I still get goosebumps every time I hear it. This phenomenal soundtrack is composed by Jeremy Soule, and in my opinion, it's one of the main factors creating the mental ties between player and the game. Being actually a good game also helps. Speaking of which, this is one of the best games of Bethesda, considered by many their magnum opus. It is packed with epic yet weird things that are still foreign even today, like Sealed Striders, Sandstorm, Scar and Eldroom, Telvanni Magic Tower, and Daedric ruins all over the island of Vvardenfell. Yeah, despite its name, you cannot actually explore the whole Morrowind province, only the Vvardenfell island. You start the game completely differently from the first two. There are no wall of text where you choose your race, class and abilities. You would make these choices along the way. And your first and only quest is to deliver a package to man in Balmora. Yeah, this bum.
Hi, how are you?
And that's it, you're free to go. And even if you're so eager to complete the main quest as soon as possible, Kai himself will tell you, listen buddy, I know you want to have some action, but first you need to be a little bit more experienced. So, I don't know, like go and play the game. And there are hundreds of different side quests you can take. There are several different guilds you can join, different great houses you can rank in. But biggest selling point for Morrowind is immersion. Whole world feels alive, and it's not revolving around you. Miners will farm for eggs, mages will conduct experiments on mushrooms to expand their minds, and houses, well, they actually look like someone lives there. There are thousands of small things, and you can actually pick all of them. I don't know why, but you could. But it doesn't mean that this game is flawless. Nowadays, the most annoying thing would be that it's still an older RPG, so all NPC talks in text. And boy, does NPC loves to talk. And you need to read all of it. That also includes your journal. I mean, it's just a wall of text. Technically, it works correctly. Your character will write down everything chronologically, but trying to find anything in this journal is a pain. Secondly, Morrowind got weird battle system. It's a chance-based system, which were actually quite popular back then. But it's quite hard for some people to accept the fact that even when you clearly hit an enemy, it just misses because of reasons. To be honest, I never found this to be that bad. First of all, it does make sense that you cannot inflict a lot of damage with a weapon you're not familiar with. And secondly, your skill level with weapon grows as you use it, so you stop missing every hit quite fast. And last issue, cliff racers. These flying rats are bane of my existence. They attack you out of nowhere, they will never let you go, and there are like billions of them. They were so annoying that there are mods there that completely remove them from the game. Speaking of which, with the game you also receive construction set, which provided you with the possibilities to create your own modifications for this game. There are mods adding new armors, new weapons, new quests, new monsters, new gameplay mechanics and new animations. Morrowind wasn't as buggy as the games that came later, but since people actually installed a lot of mods on it, it was crashing constantly. And in people's mind, it created ties between Bethesda and buggy games. Also, this is the game where the star of Todd Howard starts to shine. Even though his first project was Redguard, but come on. It was a huge hit for Bethesda, over 4 million copies were sold by 2005, and is generally considered one of the best games ever made.
This is the 27th of last seed, the year of Akatosh 433. These are the closing days of the Third Era and the final hours of my life.
A few more expansion packs from Morrowind and one more drag racing game, Bethesda decides to finally release the new Elder Scrolls game. Oblivion was highly anticipated, and probably expectations were too high. Right from the start you can notice that everything is kinda smaller. Cyrodiil feels smaller, and some skills are missing or meshed together, like there are no more long and short blades, there are just blades, leaving some people disappointed. Oblivion is another epic adventure where you are one and only who can save the world. You start the game as a prisoner. You are locked in for the crimes of not buying enough Skyrim copies, with a trolling dark elf who keeps talking shit.
Hey, you hear that? The gods are coming. For you.
But suddenly, Emperor Auriel VIP appears, as there should be a secret passage in your cell. Later, Emperor will give you Amulet of Kings, and with it, it entrusts you the life of the whole world. This time, main quest is quite pressing, narratively. I mean, you can still forget about the amulet and just travel around the world, but every main NPC will try to speed you up as much as possible. There are even mods delaying the main quests. Oh yeah, this time game also came with a construction set, so people created even more mods for this game than for Morrowind. Actually, like 3 times more. And yeah, there are animation mods as well. Biggest returning star from the Morrowind here is Jeremy Soule, who still managed to compose a very good score for this game. As for bugs, Oblivion was much buggier than Morrowind. And basically, despite some people saying that Elder Scrolls are not as they used to be, Oblivion sold 9.5 million copies, basically outselling Morrowind 2 times. For some reason, Bethesda decides to buy Fallout franchise from Interplay, who used the money to expedite their downfall by investing this in hookers and Fallout 3 was developed using the same game engine as Oblivion, so basically it was called Oblivion with guns by some haters. And if in previous games you start the game as an unexperienced adventurer, here you literally start from the very beginning, by being born. And on one of these days your daddy goes for cigarettes just for a minute, and you never see him again. So now it's up to you to find him in the vast wastelands. Fallout relies heavily on choices player makes throughout the game, so it was a little different from the Elder Scrolls games. But generally, idea was the same. It was a huge world with a million side quests. Of course, there were people who hated changes done to the game. I mean, first 2 games were isometrical RPGs, and this one looked like just a first-person shooter. But again, it did outsell even Oblivion with 12 million copies sold. And what I'm trying to say is that people actually liked this game. For the next years, Bethesda had to stop producing drag racing games because the world was not ready for its quality. And finally, they were able to concentrate all their attention on one and only. Skyrim indeed was a great Bethesda game. Huge open world, uncountable things to do. It is so huge that the common saying goes that you will never finish Skyrim completely. But in reality, it's quite similar to Oblivion in case of shrinking. There were no more stats, even less skills, even though the system was changed to perks, no more spell creation, and quests. For example, if in Morrowind you had to complete 30 plus quests for Mage Guild, in Oblivion it was around 20. In Skyrim, it takes you 8 quests to become Archmage. And there are no requirements, meaning you can become the most renowned mage in all of the Skyrim, knowing only 1 spell to get accepted. To be fair, there were more side quests in Skyrim than in Oblivion, but still almost 2 times less than in Morrowind. This time you start the game by being captured near the border, trying to sneak in or out. It's not specified. For all we know, you could actually just pick up mushrooms in the wrong place at the wrong time. But Imperials don't have time for you, because you're being captured with the most fearsome criminal in all of the Skyrim. Luckily, you've been saved by one of the most asked features in every Elder Scrolls game, a flying lizard. And now you need to capture every lizard in the world, or at least find the biggest, meanest one and pinch its tail to establish dominance. Skyrim's biggest achievement was level of immersion. If Oblivion was too much of a classic RPG, Skyrim almost managed to reach Morrowind's status of world building. And again, one of the biggest factors is score of none other than Jeremy Soule. And even if I still believe that the Morrowind main theme is the best ever, overall I think that Skyrim's score is the best in this series. Obviously, Skyrim has some ridiculous number of mods created for it. You can modify every aspect of the game, almost changing the game completely to become something else, like Dark Souls, Devil May Cry, or another type of games. Bugs? Yes. As for the sales, it's really hard to count the exact amount of Skyrim copies sold, but Google said that it's around 60 million as of June of 2023, which is actually makes it one of the most sold game in the world. No pun intended. Probably is because Skyrim was released for everything, and even Bethesda makes fun of it. Bethesda is in a strange position. On one hand, it's an object of jokes for their inability to produce games without bugs. On the other hand, some people really liked Fallout 3 and Skyrim, so I cannot say that there were no desire for Fallout 4 at all. But the expectation level was definitely not as high as before, and it was okay. There are definitely improvements that are noticeable, such as gunplay. Unlike Fallout 3, this time is much more closer to first-person shooter, and it is much more enjoyable, at least as a shooter. The world is also improved drastically. First of all, it looks better than in any previous games. Secondly, there are a lot of high buildings that you can actually explore, which adds to immersiveness. But what about the story? The year is 2077. And you need to pick up your and your partner's face right before you're visited by a Vault-Tec representative, who will conveniently provide you with a Vault entrance ticket right before the F-bomb is dropped. And after around 200 years, you actually need to find your son Sean. Yes, Sean. Overall, same as Skyrim, Fallout 4 was simplified. A lot. Maybe it was too early for a new Fallout game. Maybe it was changes to a perk system, or maybe it was outrageous amount of bugs, but this game did not receive nearly as much fan love as previous one. It is hard to say exact amount of copies sold, but generally it is somewhere along the same amount as Fallout 3, which is still good, don't get me wrong, but you know. This time we got both Fallout and Elder Scrolls game, but it's Fallout 69 and Elder Scrolls Blades.
I read on the internet that our games have had a few bugs.
You know, one just works.
All of this just works. It's not, I'm not kidding.
And other is a mobile phone green fest, ported to everything. Pay to play in all its glory. Do I even need to say anything about it? And here we are. Bethesda lost all of its credits as a pro gamer company. Yet there is still some little hope in the form of upcoming games. And the first one we got is Starfield. Despite common belief, the game is actually made on the new engine, Creation Engine 2, unlike Skyrim and Fallout 4, but I wouldn't blame you if you couldn't tell the difference. The story goes like this: you are a miner on some godforsaken planet, and on your very first shift, you actually manage to find a strange object that immediately gives you some cryptic visions and a concussion. Almost immediately after that, you receive spaceship, and you're actually free to go anywhere you want. The problem with this story is that it's simultaneously too fast and too slow. It is too fast because in like 5 minutes you are getting all of the premise. You're accepted as a member of a Greybeard. You're accepted as a member of a Constipation. It feels like it would be another 8 quests game. And it is too slow, as the actual story around the artifact is actually long and cryptic. It's not like in Skyrim when half an hour in and you already know who the main villain is. Sounds great, right? But it also means that games picks up speed very, very slowly. But just like everyone keeps telling you, yes, it does get better with time. Graphically, it's nothing special, I guess. It's okay. Most of the times you wouldn't be blown away, but on the other hand, it's not terrible. Gameplay-wise, it does feel like Cyberpunk. Especially when you're fighting, and in some locations, like Neon for example, the illusion only gets stronger. But characters? They are your standard Bethesda characters. Everyone is sterile and you can pretty much tell all about them after a few seconds. That's Sarah, she's a passionate explorer. That's Heller, he's a wisecracking miner. That's Andrea, she does not have a sense of humor. All of them fall under the stereotype behavior. Even someone like Mysterious Sam is stereotypically mysterious. It's not that bad, just don't expect NPC to act up normally, like in, well, Cyberpunk. But the main drawback of this game is breaking of immersion. Bethesda games never had best graphics or story or the gameplay, but they were always most immersive experience you can get. But this time, you constantly loading something. Opening a door, loading. Going into a cave, loading. Even to fly from one planet to another is a whole barrage of loadings. First, you enter the ship. Then you fly into the space. Then you jump to another planet. Pick up the place to land, get off the ship. That's 5 loadings only to get from one planet to another. And you need to do it constantly. And no, it's not the quick travel, that's the only way. You cannot simply fly off the planet into the space without loading. You cannot fly to the planet without loading. And you cannot even fly on the planet and pick landing zones yourself. Basically, your spaceship is just a huge loading hub to load other planets. And occasionally to have a space battle. As for the bugs.
Yeah, boy.
Overall, this one does play much better than the previous ones. Personally, I did not experience any bugs, but it's a creation engine, so I'm sure there will be some. And now, combining all of it, good yet slow story, okay gameplay and barrage of loadings, what do we get at the end? Is it really that bad? Is it really that boring? Does it really deserve all the hate it gets? No, it's a good game, but it does feel like it should have been released like 7 years ago. I do believe that it will become much better with time, like all other Bethesda games, mostly because of mods. Usually Starfield is compared to No Man's Sky, but let's be honest, really? Don't tell me you forgot how No Man's Sky started. The best description I can give to Starfield is that it's a Bethesda game.